Hello, my name is David Lee. I am the founder and chief coach of Leeway Mind and Body Mastery. I started my coaching business over 21 years ago after what could be known as a stellar career in media. I worked either launching or relaunching media products I started in about 1989, aging myself there. But I either launched or relaunched every product that I ever worked on. And I've worked for some companies such as News Corp, Fairfax, Channel 9, probably owns all of them now, 2GB. These are the sort of companies I was working with. And every single role I ever had was a very high pressure job. Big budgets, never enough time, all that sort of business. But what I most enjoyed was the coaching, counseling, leading and motivating of my staff. We always hit our budgets. We always launched products successfully, and we relaunched products successfully. One of the things that always stuck with me was a Socrates quote which says, "Remember, there is nothing stable in human affairs. Therefore, do not take undue elation in times of joy or undue depression in times of adversity." There's another Corinthian saying which says, "Strength for the day, and this too shall pass." I've been working with HPF, High Performance Fathers, for a couple of years now. I accompanied a bunch of men up the top of Kosciuszko the year before last, or probably just over a year ago actually, on what was a phenomenal experience for me. Not only did I meet about 55 new best friends, but I saw how adversity was overcome in the course of that journey. There were some fellows who, faced their demons and released them all on the top of the mountain. I've known Alex Ranieri since probably early 2010. I think I met Alex. I met him at a CrossFit competition. I was the in-house personal trainer and commercial director for Australian Men's Fitness magazine, and we had what we called the Men's Fitness Fit Bloke Challenge. It was a CrossFit style competition designed to see who was the fittest bloke in Australia. At the time, it was kind of like sorting the wheat from the chaff, in the fact that you might be a big, strong bloke, but if you didn't have the stamina, you couldn't go the distance. Alex presented me in each of the times that there was a break. I would interview one of the athletes, and Alex was this great big bloke with lots of strength, but he also had strength of character. I would interview some of the other fellows, and they were so egotistical and so arrogant that they actually showed their insecurity and their weakness. One thing that struck me about Alex was that he was just a man of his convictions, and he was a really genuinely good guy. I kept in touch with him afterwards. I think he came third in that competition, and it was over the course of the 3 days. You had to haul heavy weights and do as many push-ups and chin-ups as you could in a certain period of time. As I say, we kept in touch. I had a few lunches with Alex over there, and he even did a goal-setting program that I have, where he filled out all of his goals of purpose and what he wanted to achieve in life. And what I've been really, really proud and impressed with Alex about over those years is that he has done every single thing that he said he would do. Of course, he's had some setbacks, and of course, things have happened. And I guess that's what overcoming adversity is all about. They say in adversity, a man is revealed to himself. It is never failure, it is feedback. And I look at any feedback that I've had along the way as an opportunity to turn it all around. I look at things such as adversity as, wow, what is the lesson here for me? What am I about to learn? So with my career in media and the deadlines and the pressure and the mortgages and the raising of children, I have 2 daughters, 24 and 23, and what was my highest priority was always being a good dad to my daughters. I'm one of 10 children. I'm the middle child of a 10-kid family, an Irish Catholic family at that. My father passed away June 2021, but a very hard Irishman who in my youth had a crazy temper, but I believe that's what I needed to be the man I've become. I wrote on my father's 85th birthday on a Facebook post, "To the scariest man of my youth and the fondest man of my adulthood." As time went on, Mark Twain said, When he left home at the age of 21, at the age of 14 rather, his father was a fool, and when he returned 7 years later, he was amazed at how much his father had learned. I left home at around about the age of 18, and it wasn't until travelling through Ireland when I met my father's brother and spent some time with the family, and I learnt that this man was probably a tortured genius. He had won 16 of the 17 academic awards at St Ignatius in Galway. He came back, and obviously, through my writing letters to him and him writing letters back, we learnt a lot about each other, and it was through the praising of how well I was a writer from my father that I thought, wow, that's positive affirmations I'm getting from my father. I took that on board and have literally finished writing a book which will be released in April or May of this year. It's called The 8 E's of Equilibrium. I specialise as a work-life balance coach these days. And that book is designed around how you spend the 8 hours of leisure to you outside of the non-negotiable 8 hours of sleep. And if you work all the time you work, then you really only owe 8 hours working to yourself, to your family, and to your employer. Now, the idea of talking about adversity and how to overcome adversity, it requires a lot of resilience. Resilience is from the Latin word resilium, which means to recoil and rebound. Now, it is said that a flea can jump 220 times its height. And, when I was a kid, the idea of the Superman, the black and white Superman in my day, was that he could leap tall buildings in a single bound. He was faster than a locomotive, and, he had x-ray vision, all that sort of business. But the idea that he could leap tall buildings in a single bound was quite super. Now, the fact that a flea can jump 220 times its own body height, which in our standards would be the ability to jump over the Eiffel Tower, it's made possible not because they have these massive, strong legs, but they have a pad of protein behind their legs that when they compress it, it rebounds, and that pad of protein is known as resilium, which is where the word resilience came from. So it's the ability of fleas to jump that actually get them to where they're going. It's our ability to bounce back that gets us to where we are going. Muhammad Ali said, it doesn't matter whether you get knocked down, it's whether you stay down. You've got 10 seconds to get back up. A lot of boxers will take that whole 10 seconds, but they get back up. It's when you stay down that's when you've lost the fight. So your ability to rebound is pretty much what resilience is all about. Now, I'm a big fan of the Stoics, Stoicism. It's a philosophy more than a religion, but I've adopted it as a bit of a religion in the respect that how I live my life is based around a lot of Latin terms. I like to quote Stoic philosophers a lot because I've read a lot of Stoic philosophy, and I remember the things that have really stood out to me. One of those in particular is premeditatio malorum, which is the premeditation of maladies, or in today's terms, thinking of the worst thing that could possibly go wrong and do anything in your power or everything in your power to make sure that it doesn't. Now, that other famous philosopher and boxer, Mike Tyson, said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Now, the idea of it is he's a boxer. And yes, he had a plan and he got punched in the face. Now, what do you do when you get punched in the face? When life punches you in the face, what's your plan? I think you have to have a plan B. I think you have to plan. I know you have to plan for adversity. If you get out of this life, no one gets out alive, of course, but you get out of this life without any adversity, you won't have a very interesting life. Joshua J. Marine said, it's the challenges of life that make life interesting. Overcoming those challenges is what makes life meaningful. So when a challenge comes along, I often think to myself, what's the lesson in here? There is no growth in the comfort zone. And unless I actually do stretch myself out of the comfort zone, then what have I done to make my life a bit better and a bit more meaningful? For me, I believe that life is about meaning and memories. You create the memories through the meaning and the meaning through the memories. Dr. Seuss said, you never know the meaning of a moment until it becomes a memory. Winnie the Pooh said, you never know you're having a moment or creating a moment, you just know you're having fun. The more emotion you put towards anything that you plan, the better that experience will be for you as far as memory and emotion are concerned. Now, many of us will remember where we were when we heard that Lady Diana died. Some of us might know where we were when we heard that JFK had been shot. We certainly all remember where we were when the Twin Towers were hit and 9/11 happened. And there might be some really traumatic experiences that have happened to you in life that you'll be able to determine or recall with such vivid memory that you could tell what day it was. I know it was August the 31st, 1997, when I was walking into a service station and there was the newspaper thing that said Lady Diana had died in a car crash, is what the news was at the time. It was an unusually hot day for the last day of August, but I remember what I was wearing, I remember what I was doing. I bought a mint slice and a coconut rough, and I was heading back home. Now, the reason I raise that is when you look at the adversity that's happened for you in life and the resilience that you need to have, think of those things and you'll remember them. But also in planning to avoid or to overcome adversity, it's very, very hard to avoid problems. As I say, if you think of the worst thing that could possibly go wrong in any situation and you do everything in your power to make sure it doesn't, then you've got those steps covered. You should also have, if it does happen, what do I do then? And that's part of planning for the worst, but ideally you plan for the best. Wherever your attention goes, your energy flows. If you actually expect the best, then the best will happen. If you expect the worst, that's what will happen as well. As a young bloke, I was the middle child. I always felt that I was, and this was my view of the world, I felt I was too young to do anything with the big kids and I was too old to do anything with the little kids. And I always felt that I missed out. And on one particular day, and it was around about my 10th birthday, we had gone to some sort of a show. It was up in the Blue Mountains, and we caught a train there. We didn't have a car with that many kids, and we caught a train to this particular festival or show, and there was Ferris wheels and all that sort of thing. And one brother had to go on whack-a-mole, and another brother had to go on the claw thing that picked up toys, and one brother had to go on a dodgem, and I sat back and I watched, and this was my way at the time. I sat back and I watched and I waited for things to happen that proved that I was right, that I didn't get anything. I was coming from a martyr perspective, not a victim perspective, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But at the end of the day, as every one of my siblings had had a better run of things than I had, I said to my mother, look, see, Mum, I missed out. I didn't get to have a fair go of everything. Terry got to do this, Anthony got to do that, Kevin got to do this, Brandon got to do that. And I rattled off the siblings' names. And my mother said, and it was just as the showground was kind of closing, she gave me 2 cents. So if I haven't aged myself already, I am now. She gave me a 2-cent piece. And she goes, there you go, sad sack. Why don't you throw that in that wishing well over there and wish you were in a better family? And as I walked towards the wishing well, my first thought was to put this 2 cents in my pocket. That was worth a bit in those days. And my second thought was to, if I did actually wish to be in a better family, I don't know what that's going to be. You know, better the devil you know, I suppose. But as I got there, the childish 10-year-old thought that popped into my head as I threw that in was, I just wish I wasn't so sad all the time. Because I was always very, very sad. And it was just, woe is me. You know, I had a CEO say to me one day, David, they're all carrying on like victims. I was giving a talk around resilience during COVID. And I said, well, we're all victims. And she said, I wouldn't have thought you'd say that. I said, well, there's a difference between a victim and a martyr. She said, well, we're all in the same boat. And I said, no, we're not. We're all in the same ocean. And in any situation, we're all in the same ocean. Some of us can launch online businesses and drive off in an sail off in an $850,000 seafarer. Others can be, barely hanging on to a life raft. And so have respect for everybody else. But the idea of being a victim as opposed to a martyr, I had a martyr's way of thinking. I thought, watch what happens, and I bet you it does. Flick the 2-cent piece into the wishing well, and that was that. And now my mother took my hand quite warmly at the time and said, don't tell me what you wish for. And she smiled at me, gave me a hug and a kiss. Now, my first thought was, that's unusual. My mother doesn't normally do that. My wish is coming true because I wished that I could be not sad all the time, but that I could actually be happy all the time as well. And as I walked along, this lady coming the other way smiled at me. I smiled back, and the next person smiled at me. And as we sat on the train and we each found our seats, obviously there wasn't scheduled seating or ticketed seating, and I found my seat. And my mother used to make sandwiches in bulk. Given there were that many of us, we'd buy the day-old bread, and she'd make the sandwiches in bulk. and ox tongue was cheap. And so we used to have ox tongue and beetroot sandwiches. And growing up where I did, generally by lunchtime they hadn't thawed, and so you're crunching through crunchy crystallized beetroot, and frozen ox tongue sandwiches actually taste a little bit better than cooked ox tongue does. But my mother's handed me these 4 sandwiches, or 2 big sandwiches. And as I opened them up, they were defrosted and they were fresh and they were peanut butter, which was my favourite. I'm like, wow, here you go. This is great. Expecting that I was going to get the ox tongue. I didn't. It was this. I was happy. These 2 big men sitting across from me, and I looked up and I got this fear. And then one of them said, "Hungry, big fella." And everyone laughed. And I laughed and I thought, this is just happening at a rate of knots. Now, I believed that my wish had come true. I believed that the wish to never be sad anymore and to be happy had been granted. And here I was being happy. And everywhere I went, I looked for happiness to arrive. And it did. So the idea there was, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Some people expect the worst, and the worst comes their way. I'm a journaler. I encourage anybody out there to journal. Every single one of my clients, I offer a money-back guarantee. And one of those things I say is, you have to do every single thing in the program. And when people say to me, a bloke said to me this morning, "Oh, this is happening, blah, blah." And I said, "Hey, have you been journaling?" And he goes, "Oh, no. I said, no. You want to have an unbridled whinge to me for half an hour about something that if you had have journaled about it, you would have worked it out." Plato said, thinking is the soul talking with itself. Now, a problem shared can be a problem halved, as they say, but a problem shared can be a problem squared, depending on who you share it with. Sometimes you raise a problem with your partner, and then the way she responds to it, you immediately go, "Oh, hang on, I didn't, blah, 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 no," and you start getting all worked up. Similarly, our partner might tell us a problem. We're men, we want to solve this. The idea of men are from Mars and women are from Venus, we just try to fix things. Your partner just wants to be listened to, we're trying to solve the problem. So when I say journaling, if you're journaling, you actually find that when you're communicating with people, you have a better articulation of what you've written because you have thought about it before you verbalized it. And I think that's one of the greatest benefits of journaling is just that. It also gives you an idea just to unpack the monkey chatter. You write it down. Now, my journaling is such that it'll be like, it's 5 a.m. on the 17th of February, and then I put, the day, it's Friday, and then I'll write, I slept my 8 hours, I did this, I did that, might have say what I did last night or whatever, and what I plan to do today. And then as I'm writing that out, I have a little palm card off to the side, and I'll write out a bunch of to-dos, because I might be writing there and I'll say, "I haven't spoken to my mother for a while, call mum." And then I look at that, and that to-do list comes around with me in my pocket. I have a plan. Now, I'm a big believer in having a morning routine. Planning to fail is failing to plan. Proper planning prevents poor performance. So journaling is part of my morning routine. I have a morning routine so that my days aren't routine. Now, what I do throughout the course of a morning, even when I send out my morning routine template, it doesn't really have every single thing that I have in there. But every single thing that I do in my morning routine becomes so routine, so to speak, that I don't even have to think about it. So I get up, make the bed. Everyone's heard of the admiral who gave the leaving speech of make your bed. Now, he says that'll be your first victory of the day. To me, make your damn bed. Who else is going to make it? You slept in it, make your bed. So I get up and literally, because of everything I do, I pull the covers back. I sleep quite soundly because of all the preparation that I do. Now, everything I do, I have learned since the high-pressure days of sleepless nights, deadlines, other people, limiting beliefs, and all those things that I've overcome and the adversity that I've faced, rather than throwing the towel in and giving it up. And so the idea of I get up and I fold that over. I go to the bathroom and I sit on the scales. Now, that scales is measuring my footprint on the planet. It's my first sense of awareness, and I like to weigh 88 kilos. So I see how on or off that mark I am. I'll then go into the kitchen, I'll turn on the coffee machine, and I'll juice 1 whole lemon in with Himalayan rock salt and 750 mils of water. I drink it through a metal straw so I don't ruin the enamel on my teeth. It's a citric acid. What that does is it hydrates me because I haven't eaten or drank anything for 8 hours at least, and it flushes my kidneys, flushes out my liver, and it kickstarts my metabolism. A lemon has 136% of your daily vitamin C requirements, so it's helping my immunity as well. I have a letter that I write to myself, and it's an as if now letter, and I do this every year, and I write out, it's January the 1st, 2024, and I just had the greatest year of my life because I finished 2 more books, I did this, I did that, and I write out how I want the year to go. And as my coffee machine's heating up, I read out that letter, and I should know it off by heart, but I read it, and everyone I think, hang on, how am I going on that book? And if I'm not going towards where I wanted to do, that's in the back of my mind. I then sit down, and I quickly flick through what my goals are for the year. I have set goals, and I encourage everybody to do it, to set goals around what you want in mental, physical, spiritual, social, financial, family, business, and romance. What do you want to achieve? Now, I say the whys are the windows to your goals. So why do you want them? Oh, I want a Lamborghini. Why? Because I'll be better than all my friends. When do you want it by? By the end of the year. Is that realistic? Well, no. Where are you going to park it? Can you afford the insurance? The whys have to really be a burning desire. A lot of my clients, I say, why do you want this? So I can be a better father to my children. I said, okay, what will that give you? Well, it'll give me great memories throughout life. Okay, what's the first step? Take a minute to begin it. What could you do right now to make that a reality? And every minute by minute becomes an hour, becomes a day. Everyone's heard of carpe diem, which means seize the day. Carpe punctum is seize the moment. Moment by moment becomes momentum. Once you get momentum and you do the same thing every single day, you have a momentous life. People say to me, why are you happy all the time? Why are you always so happy? And I say, because I know how the story ends. I don't know when it will end, and I don't want it to end for a very, very long time. But I just know that if I keep doing what I'm doing day by day, moment by moment, with awareness, then I will naturally have a great future and I'll naturally leave a great past. Lao Tzu said, depression is living in the past, anxiety is living in the future, and peace is living in the now. Now, if you had a bad childhood, you can actually have a great childhood by learning from that childhood and doing something about it to be a great father. My take on Lao Tzu's speech, or quote if you like, is optimism is looking at the future positively. Nostalgia is looking at the future positively. But you still have this moment now, and all you have is peace if you live in the moment. And the idea that we can go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without oxygen, and the now is measured as 3 seconds. So from the time I started this soliloquy to now, a few nows have passed. So if all I have is this moment, and I live in this moment to the best of my ability, then I'm going to be the best version of myself and show that to everybody else, but more so to me, and that's going to help me prepare for adversity. Because, you know, it's like I remember seeing Paul Gallen was interviewed after one of his prize fights. Now, Paul Gallen's not after belts. He's just after the title. He calls the prize. He calls himself a prize fighter. And, you know, he fought some bloke and they slugged it out for 12 rounds. And at the end of it, he was breathless. The other guy was breathless. And, we only had 2 months to prepare for this. And I'm like, well, hang on. You say you're a prize fighter. You're not a lawyer. You're not an accountant. What did you think you were preparing for? Seneca said, we sweat in training to avoid bleeding in battle. I remember doing boxing. I'm a qualified boxing instructor, and I was doing a boxing session with a fellow once, and he said, can I hold the pads? And he held the pads, and he goes, I don't hit so hard. And I said, the idea of training is to know how hard you can hit. You know, I don't want to find out how hard I can hit when I'm against some bloke who's hitting harder than me. I want to find out that that's the level of hit I want to give to that guy, which isn't going to kill him, but it's going to stun him. Now, I've never thrown the first punch in my life. But if you hit me, even St. Peter would hit somebody back. And that's the thing. It's about preparation, and it's called self-defense. One thing about boxing training, and even exercise for that matter, it burns stress chemicals. A lot of my clients will say to me, you're going to make me run, aren't you? And I said, no, I'm not. But I'm going to get you to move. I'm going to get you to do at least 50 air squats and 50 push-ups when you wake up in the morning. Oh, it's going to take me all day. Well, it may. Well, first bloke said, I can't do that. And I said, well, you can over the course of a day. Now, that fellow who said that to me can do 50 push-ups in under a minute now. So he's prepared in that regard, because I asked blokes, can you save your own life? Could you, if you can do 10 chin-ups, you can climb out of a burning building. If you can bench press your body weight, you can push away an attacker. If you can deadlift your own body weight, you can carry a loved one out of the bush. If you can't, if your partner gets bitten by a snake and you can't carry her out of the bush, I remember being on the beach one day with my partner and one of the kids in the surf. Now, my girlfriend, if you like, has young children, 10 and 7, and she's a bit of a worrywart, this woman. And I'm asleep on the beach this day, and she screamed, she's panicking. Her son was being taken out in a rip. Now, I just got up and started sprinting. There was a big bank. I fell over, went into a somersault, got out there, swam out, got the kid, came back. Now, when I replayed that story, later on that night, I was the hero. Everyone loved me. And when I replayed that story, I thought to myself, if that had happened and I was 20 kilos overweight, well, if I had a run, firstly, I would have fallen flat on my face. I wouldn't have fallen. I did gymnastics as a kid. But again, even through martial arts, they teach you how to fall. And these are all the things that I have learned and prepared for, so that I'm ready when the worst happens. And the idea of being prepared for the worst is you actually have this sense of confidence that it kind of won't happen because you're ready for it. And it just doesn't. The idea that the defense thinks what the prosecution's going to say when they prepare their case, and vice versa, is how they prepare what they're going to come up against, the adversity of the courtroom. But on that particular occasion, that night, when I sat there and thought, if I was 20 kilos overweight, when I fell down that embankment, bang, that would have probably winded me or twisted an ankle. And then if I didn't get out there and I wouldn't, this would have been what a loser or whatever. Not saying anyone's a loser if they're carrying a bit of pud, because every moment that passes is your opportunity to turn it all around. Ella Wheeler Wilcox said, with every rising of the sun, consider your life as just begun. And so I say to people, today's the first day of the rest of your life. They reckon, I'm in February right now as I give this talk, and by February, over 80% of the people who have written their New Year's resolutions have given up on them. And resolutions are things that you resolve to do. Benjamin Franklin said, resolve to perform what you ought and perform without fail what you resolve. So resolutions aren't wishes. Intentions aren't wishes. Intentions are things you intend to do. A resolution is something you have resolved, as in you think, if I do this, I will be a better person. And so when you stop doing that, you've not resolved anything, and you haven't performed without fail. You have performed up to a point. And I feel worse when I've given up on something. Now, the idea is you have the ability to be flexible in a plan. Don't change the goal, change the plan if you're not getting there. See, it's not so much the goals you set, it's who you become in the pursuit of those goals. Me writing a book, which took me, 4 months to write. I've been wanting to write this book for 6 years. And then the day I decided this was a book that I was going to write and I really had to get it out, I broke it down into steps. And I decided if I wrote for 4 hours a day, every day, not waiting for the muse to turn up, but sitting down at 4 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the morning, that was it. Clearest time of the day. My mind's at its most alert. The house is still, all that sort of business. Tapped away. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you build a brick wall? One bite at a time. How do you write a book? One word at a time. Epictetus said, if you want to be a writer, write. So whatever you want to do it. I say, if it takes a minute, begin it. And take a minute to begin it. People say, well, give me a minute. I say, no. No one's giving you a minute. You take a minute. Take a minute to take control of your life and sit down, and even if it's meditate, you meditate for 1 minute. Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is space. And in that space lies your power to choose your response. And in your response lies your growth and your freedom. Now, when I talk about meditation, we have what we call neural pathways in our brain. So your brain talks to itself the same way it always has. My morning routine is so in a groove that once I've done that, then I've journaled, and then I do this and everything, then I read for half an hour, and then I do what I do. That is so habitual and so routine that I don't have to think about it. And so the idea that meditation is a part of that, meditation's again, it's a preparation which increases that space. If the space is like that, then you react. You don't have the power to respond. You have the inability, so you react. I liken it to the bridges, the laneways on a bridge. When you come to a bridge and the bridge is like that, the traffic all bulks up and slows down. More laneways on the bridge, the more the traffic would flow through. So when you meditate, it actually opens new neural pathways in your brain or builds them. A simpler way is just brush your teeth with the opposite hand. Put your leg or pants, or even be aware of which leg you put into your pants first. Drive a different way to work. Do something different. And the idea of doing something different or something you've never done before, it builds new neural pathways in your brain, which gives you a little bit more space, which gives you the ability to respond. Now, Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, which chronicled his time through 4 Nazi concentration camps during Second World War. One of the things that he noted, between Christmas and New Year, around 50% of the prisoners were dying and they were succumbing to illnesses. Now, what had happened was they'd lost hope. There's a Nietzsche quote in there, where he says, with a big enough why, man can endure almost any how. And so that's why I say the whys are the windows to your goal. But what Viktor Frankl, he was an Austrian psychiatrist, what he noticed that survivors had in common, there were 3 things that they had in common. They had rich inner lives, they had goals for the future, and they had optimism. And optimism is that it's that key. You really have to believe that life's going to be great, you're going to achieve what you achieve, and the journey you're embarking upon is going to take you to where you want it to take you. But there is a Seneca quote, for one who doesn't know to which port he is sailing, no wind is favourable. So you've got to know where you're headed. From a mental perspective, and I ask you to rate yourselves out of 10, where 7's not an option. 7's not an option because everyone says 7. 7's easy. 7's average. But there's a big difference between giving yourself an 8 out of 10 and a 6 out of 10. When you give yourself 6 out of 10, they're the things you've got to look at. So from a mental perspective, how do you rate your mental state? So if it's not a 8, then you've got to think, okay, what can I do from a mental state? I can meditate. I can pray. I can do some enlightening activities. Now, spirituality is not religion. It's, Christ wasn't a Christian, Buddha wasn't a Buddhist, Muhammad wasn't a Muslim. Gandhi said, I like your Christ. It's your Christians I have a problem with. You're so unlike your Christ. So be careful of the beliefs that you've inherited. A belief is a behavior. You can't say one thing, you believe in one thing and do another, as Gandhi kind of pointed out. But the point of it is a belief has to serve you, support you, nurture you, and sustain you. And as much as I say don't change your goals, change your plans, if your belief system isn't serving you, something that maybe I note newcomers, new Australians, I've been to Italy, been a few times, and Italy has really progressed. I've been to Ireland. My dad was from Ireland. I remember thinking, wow, the island of Ireland these days is nowhere near the island my father preserved in our home. You go into an Italian restaurant with the red checkered tablecloths and they serve it and Nonna comes out and over there they're putting carrot in the bolognese. You wouldn't do that here. So they've moved on. We've called time on that. The belief system which I was given was pre-Vatican II, which, if anyone knows anything about Catholicism, as a kid we weren't allowed to eat meat on Friday nights. That was abolished. It never applied to anyone under the age of 14, and it was abolished in 1964. That was before I was born. So I was living with a belief system that was kind of working against me. I take a lot of solace in prayer. I pray to the degree of, the things that I want and I thank. I do remember one day in a prayer situation saying, God, I've been praying for this for a couple of years now. What's going on? And the answer came back, well, are you praying or are you wishing? I'm like, what? Well, what are you doing about it? And the Aesop's fables, God helps those who help themselves. So praying isn't wishing either. Praying to mine is a verbal articulation of my goals. When I put it out to the universe, source, God, whatever, I'm actually saying what it is that I want. I'm identifying it. It's better to write it because there it is. And as I say, your goals and this thing is what you go back to. It's the thing that when the stuff hits the fan, you go, right, hang on, what did I really want? And why did I want it? And you set the tone on what it is that you're after in life and why this is what you wanted and what that will give you and how that will serve you. And these are the sort of things that you need to do as far as just very, very conscious of time. These are the sort of things that you need to do to make sure that you're living your best life, that you're not you're treating things as setback, not failure, as feedback. The comeback is greater than the setback. It always is, and it has to be. So I guess the idea, you guys have taken the first step and you're in a cohort. I talk about finding your life's purpose. Your P is your plan. Your U is understanding what your whys are. Your R is reviewing, resetting, renewing, and reframing. The P is the people on your team. Who are the people that are, bringing you down, and who are the people that are lifting you up? Now, you're in a really good cohort with HPF because as a tribe, you're all going in the same direction. You all want the best for each other. You'll make a lot of new best friends here, as I did. I love the feedback that I get from HPF. I have a real privilege and a pleasure to be a part of the tribe because every time I speak and I'm involved in the Sunday charge-ups and as a consultant coach, I learn something every single day. And I learn about resilience and I learn about the strength. You never take a short-term solution or a long-term solution rather to a short-term problem because in 5 years' time, it won't bother you. It won't matter. A lot of the things that people go, wow, this is really rubbish. Yeah, you'll get through it. You might come out of it without what you went in there. If I told you I was ripped off on a gym chain, which, I lost half of my wealth in one go. My father died in the same year. I got a divorce in the same year. My best friend got cancer. The things that when I think about them collectively, it's, oh man. But when I think, hang on a second, what did I learn from that? How did I deal with that? How can I serve the other people that are involved in that? How can I say some will, some won't, so what? How can I look for the learning in that? How can I take what I learned from that and impart that to others to actually help them? So embrace the cohort, embrace the library of lessons and learnings that are available to you. You've made the first step and you're involved in a really great movement, and it is a high performance fathers. And there is no greater job. The reason I love being involved is my greatest accomplishment in life. I went for a walk yesterday with my 24-year-old psychologist daughter. I'm going stand-up paddleboarding on the weekend with my 23-year-old daughter who followed my footsteps in media, and within the space of 6 months went from she's got a marketing degree, coordinator to sales executive to now group head. And because she just so keeps doing, and she did everything. They say to teachers to learn twice, and my children were the beneficiaries of everything I learned. But I make sure I learn something every single day. When I was 8 years old, I said to my dad, hey Dad, when do you die? He said, you die the day you stop learning. A couple of weeks later, I went to sleep and I thought, wow, I just dicked about all day. I was at bedtime and I thought, so I ran into the lounge room and I grabbed the Encyclopedia Britannica and I learned about the Kalahari Bushmen and their nomadic ways. And I went to sleep. The very next day, the principal came into the school. He's looking around and the teacher said, all right, everyone has to stand up and talk for 3 minutes about anything. And I got up and I talked about how the Kalahari Bushmen put rock salt into the hollow of a tree. The monkeys come along and they grab the rock salt and they won't let it go. The Kalahari Bushman puts a little rope around his neck, then gives him a great big bit of rock salt. He licks away at it. Then they let him go and they follow him, and that's how they find the fresh water. And as it turned out, I got chosen for the school debating team, and I found I've got a great ability to retain facts, and I like speaking in front of people. And that was something that I learnt, but I also was given the gift of learning. And it's one of the greatest gifts you can give. And so give it to yourself, keep learning, keep showing up. It's feedback, it's not failure, and the comeback is always greater than the setback. So enjoy the ride, fellas. It's great, and I look forward to meeting you in the group. Be well.